Right, hey guys, how are we doing? We're back on another Mother's Basement video. Now this is going to be interesting. So this is called the worst Isekai anime, and I do believe it's about the Master of Ragnarok. I tried watching Master of Ragnarok. I watched like 2 episodes, and I just could not watch it because it's awful. And in my opinion, it's awful. And so to see Mother's Basement doing a video called the worst Isekai anime and to be talking about that, I was intrigued. So yeah, let's just get into this. This is the worst Isekai anime. Yeah, weird. Oh my god. Yeah. Like, there's a bit in episode 1 where he's got an erection and they're all like, oh, look at that, and it's like, you don't see his penis but like through the cloth, and it's like, okay, this is where this anime is going. Ooh, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna need to do some therapeutic shilling before I can handle any more of this.
Yeah, it's tough.
This video is sponsored by Azure Lane, one of Japan's most popular mobile games, which is finally making the way to North America courtesy of Yostar Games. Azure Lane is a bullet hell style shoot 'em up that lets you take control of a fleet of adorable, heavily armed battleship girls based on real warships from World War II. And while it has the RPG elements and character customization systems you'd expect from a mobile app, your victory or defeat really does come down to your raw skill at guiding your customized fleet of 6 girls through hails of bullets and torpedoes. I kinda suck at shmups, to be honest, and by the second chapter I was already being challenged by enemy fleets, which is a refreshing change of pace from the hand-holding and random outcomes of other Moe mobile games. Also nice, Azure Lane has a proper story with popular seiyuu voices you'll recognize from anime, including Yui Ishikawa, Rie Kugimiya, Sumire Uesaka, and Yuki Horie. The story gives it a sense of momentum that similar games just don't have. If you want to see what's made this game such a huge hit in Japan, click the link in the doobly-doo to download it for yourself and try it today. Now, back to less pleasant things. It takes a lot to make me feel like I've been a bit too harsh on shows like Sword Art Online and Another World with my smartphone and Knights Ampersand Magic, but boy, the Master of Ragnarok and Blesser of Einherjar sure is a lot. I mean, it's a lot of nothing, but it's a lot of nothing. Master of Ragnarok and Blesser of Einherjar, or Morbo for short, is yet another Isekai, or Trapped in Another World show. And if Smartphone and Knights Ampersand Magic were scraping the bottom of that particular barrel, then Morbo's bloody, gnarled finger stumps are clawing through the dirt several feet below it. If someone made a list of everything wrong with trashy paint-by-numbers light novel adaptations and bargain basement harem anime, and then some anime studio found it and mistook it for a plot synopsis, then this would be the dollar store knockoff of whatever they made.
That's amazing.
I'm going to summarize the plot of this show, and you're going to think that I'm exaggerating some of the details for comedic effect, but I promise you, I am not. Yuto is an ordinary teenager living in modern-day Japan until one night, against the protests of his stock factory model childhood friend, he takes a selfie with a cursed mirror and is transported into another world, which is really the distant past, with his smartphone. Also, the world's called Yggdrasil, because if you're gonna give up, you may as well give up all the way. Right after Yuto arrives in this magical land, we jump forward 2 years, which makes sense to me. I mean, time skips are obviously everyone's favorite part of anime, so why not start with one? Future Yuto has become the patriarch of a warrior clan, aided by a harem of hot fantasy babes with crazy magic superpowers called Einherjar, all of whom, by technicality of a sacred ritual, are also his little sisters and daughters, and all of whom, for reasons that I'm sure are purely aesthetic and historically accurate, call him some variation of father, big brother, super amazing, exalted big brother, or master. When they're not busy talking about how great he is, which is literally all the time. There's not a single conversation in this show that goes by without somebody getting sidetracked by how smart and handsome and humble and hardworking Yuto is. And also, did they mention how badly they want to fuck him? Because it's really badly. I have never in my life seen a piece of video content that feels more like the creator is just jacking himself off in front of me. And I've watched Dark Side Phil stream. 6 episodes in, the series has consisted mostly of Yuto collecting new little sisters and daughters like Pokemon, stumbling into some of the most awkward and laughably contrived ecchi scenes in anime history, and winning even worse battle scenes by looking up tactics on Wikipedia, using his smartphone, which is solar-powered and gets a radio signal through the magic mirror. To Morbo's credit, it must have been hard to come up with something even dumber than God magically enchanted my phone to make it work in a fantasy land, and I'm kind of impressed they pulled it off. By this point, I think I've demonstrated how, on a purely conceptual level, this story had all the makings of a hot and noxious dumpster fire. But concepts are not the be-all and end-all of anime. It's how a studio executes on those concepts that ultimately determines a show's final quality. And it's thanks to the hard work of Kosuke Kobayashi and EMT Squared, the same director and studio team who gave us last season's Siscon train wreck Alice or Alice, that Morbo manages to be as spectacularly awful as it is. Now, as you've been watching this video, you may have noticed something a little off about this show. If you haven't been looking too closely at the screen, you might have missed it, so I'll give you a second to take a guess what it is I'm talking about.
Go on.
Do you think you have it? The correct answer is, it looks like fucking garbage. Most of the artwork in this show is DeviantArt tier amateur hour stuff. Half the backgrounds are static, ugly brick walls, and the other half are terrible, low poly, or even single plane CGI with textures so muddy that they look rough on N64. The characters are outlined with these distracting colored borders that I think are meant to help them be composited more seamlessly into scenes, but end up having the opposite effect, making them stick out like sore thumbs, and drawn with almost zero grasp of accurate perspective or anatomy. Half the time, the animators cheat their faces into a side view so that they'll only have to draw one eye. This is a seriously lazy or seriously rushed
production. I used to do when I used to do drawings and stuff.
I'm not pausing the screen to complain about messy in-betweens here. That would be totally unfair. These problems are everywhere in the keyframes, which are supposed to be at least somewhat polished, and even static images that the show uses when scenes are too hard to actually animate. Like this, despite looking like Broken Neck Sasuke, is not a frame of animation. It is a single piece of complete, detailed artwork that several people looked at and said, yeah, that's acceptable to broadcast on television. What the fuck is even going on here? Even ignoring the thumb monsters passing for humans in the background, Steinthor, the central figure in the image, is a mess. I have no idea how he's supposed to be swinging his hammer to hit those guys behind him. Either he's whipping it around the back of his head sideways, or he was bent over backwards limbo style a second ago with it on the ground behind him, and he's swinging it overhead from that position. Either way, it just looks stupid. And the line of action doesn't even carry through his whole body. It curves down through his arm and torso, but then it stops at a hard angle at his legs, which are squatting like he's gonna take a poop or something. It almost looks like a scrapped draft of this slightly less embarrassing action pose from a couple seconds ago that they threw back in to fill time, which I wouldn't put past them, considering they followed up by repeating this image from less than a minute earlier in the episode. Slowed down slightly in case you missed his half-drawn bird face and broken neck the first time. And do I even need to say that it looks worse in motion? The action scenes in this anime are so bad that I'd honestly be more embarrassed if my mom or roommate walked in on me watching one of them than I would with the ecchi scenes. The copy-pasted CGI soldiers look awful on their own, and they appear to be way too sharp against the often blurry background art. One action scene is literally just yellow dots on a blue background. I also can't think of any anime that I've ever seen with horses that look this janky, but they don't just cut corners with the unimportant elements. This is the big climactic fight animation that's supposed to punctuate the OP. It's used at the front of every episode, so logic would dictate that it would be one of the show's more impressive Sakuga moments. But the character's movement on this flat, stretched out ground texture is so choppy and poorly composited that it looks more like an early FMV from a 90s point-and-click adventure or like a Newgrounds animation than a professional original anime production from 2018. And the fight that this is supposed to represent is even worse in the anime itself. Ask yourself, how would you choreograph a fight between a lady on horseback with a katana and a man in a chariot with a giant hammer? Perhaps some sort of wild chase over uneven terrain with lots of collateral damage? No, that's too expensive. But maybe we could have them circle each other, trading blows. No, that's still too much. How about we have their horses stand perfectly still next to each other while they swing their weapons using only their upper bodies, and then add some blur effects and camera shakes in post to make it look a bit less shitty. Yeah, it's not great, and that's probably the best action shot in the series so far. Most fights are a blur of close-ups and other cheats used to avoid any complex motions at all costs, because when they try anything complex, you get nonsense like this. Of course, this is ostensibly a harem comedy, not an action series, so this low-quality animation would be somewhat forgivable if the characters were interesting or the writing was good. But then you know that this video wouldn't exist if that was the case. Yuto himself is not so much a character as he is a cipher for the audience, a vehicle through which they can vicariously have their wishes fulfilled. And while this is true of a lot of isekai and harem protagonists, Morbo is insultingly transparent about it. He has basically no personality between being hardworking, really smart, really nice, and, well, his flaws are that he's not physically strong, and he thinks too lowly of himself, not taking enough credit for what he achieves by applying his historical knowledge from the internet. Yeah, you heard me right. His chief character flaw is that he's not aware enough of how gosh darn great he is. And that's even more fucking insufferable than it sounds. Every time someone compliments him on one of his achievements, he whines to himself, no, it was just a cheat, in an obnoxious pantomime of fake humility that makes me want to just punch him in the face. And the male supporting cast so far is no better. It consists entirely of dumb old men who exist solely so that Yuto can yell at them for being dumb to impress girls, jerky, confident guys who all die instead of being given a chance to submit to the Wolf Clan like the girls are for some reason that I can't put my finger on, and this dollar store knockoff of Gilgamesh from Fate. Oh, and a couple of nicer older guys who offer a bit of good advice and help the girls in fights sometimes, but most importantly are way too old to potentially move in on the harem. Essentially, every man in the show is written to be as unthreatening to Yuto and the audience members projecting themselves onto him by proxy as humanly possible. And as for the women folk, well, this is a lazy harem anime, so you know the drill by now. You've got the serious, violent one with a secret crush on Yuto, the big-titted, slutty one with a secret crush on Yuto, the meek little sister type with a secret crush on Yuto, and the awkward engineer-type girl with a secret crush on Yuto. And these twins, one of whom does the deadpan snark thing, while the other one is literally too fucking stupid to fuck. And also, they're actual children, because of course they are. And yeah, that's not even the worst of it. In one of the show's bids to demonstrate what a great friggin' guy Yuto is, we see him stop in the middle of the town's market to glower at a slave trader selling a mother and her little girl. After a bit of thought, our kind-hearted hero from a century where literally nobody thinks this practice is okay, purchases these two humans, thereby supporting the evil business that, as the city's leader, he could easily just ban, and decides to keep owning them, but promises to be really nice about it. At first, this mother and daughter are treated as forgettable background characters, but of course we know that they'll be back, because one of them appears in the harem roll call for the OP. Which one? I'll give you a hint. It's not the mom. That puts this all-incest harem's lolly count at 3, which is the threshold where Nobuhiro Watsuki officially endorses your show. But let's put a pause on that for a second. We have one more prop, girl to talk about here. When he's not using it to irresponsibly fuck up the timeline by introducing modern science to the Bronze Age and probably creating a future where Trump becomes the president or something ridiculous like that, Yuto uses his smartphone to make nightly calls to his childhood friend just to make sure she knows he's okay. But not to his parents, they're just
he doesn't want his family to know,
or whatever, I guess. Well, okay, to be fair, it is vital that he regularly talks to Mitsuki, because even though she doesn't have a personality to speak of, she serves as his all-important excuse to not bang all the hot girls who are constantly telling him how much they want to have sex with him. The series really wants to sell that indulgent fantasy of harem girls throwing themselves at you, but it's a light novel series, so actual sex is off the table. I call this the high school DxD principle, or having your cake and not fucking it too. But as PG-13 excuses go, this has gotta be one of the all-time dumbest. Remember, Yuto's a teenager with zero sexual experience. He hasn't actually seen this girl in 2 years, and he may never see her again. And he never actually told her how he feels, so he's placing all of these invisible expectations on her to wait for him through the best years of her life based on a crush that we as an audience can clearly see as requited, but he doesn't know that, while ignoring a bunch of girls who he's clearly attracted to and who've told him they're attracted to him. The way that this is all framed is about as unhealthy and selfish as teenage sexuality in anime gets, and that's saying a lot. Although, on the bright side, it means that Yuto's not trying anything with those 3 literal children in his harem. Instead, we just see them get naked and throw themselves at him. And the show goes out of its way to make this even more uncomfortable than it usually is in anime. Because not only do we see 2 of the lollies, the twin sisters, push each other down to share germs as their character introduction, in other ecchi scenes they have dialogue to actively and explicitly remind us that they are too young for this shit, which I guess makes it better for the lolicons in the audience, but it's more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Weird.
Horrifying and off-putting for everyone else. As flimsy as excuses like she's actually 800 years old are for token lolly fan service in harem and ecchi shows, they really do help for people who just want to squint past that unfortunate aspect of the culture and enjoy all of the other fun, sexy nonsense that anime gets up to. Repeatedly calling attention to the fact that, say, your protagonist is having his toes sucked while getting a non-consensual booby backwash in front of a horrified and embarrassed child who is his slave is, to put it mildly, a bit of a mood killer. Not that there's much of a mood to kill in the first place, because the art and animation in the fan service scenes is just as terrible as it is in the action. I'm not going to spend too long breaking down the problems, because we're on YouTube, and what I've said so far, if not edited very carefully, is already a recipe for demonetization, but to put it flatly, it's just awkward to look at. The characters barely move, and when they do, their poses and movements are stiff and decidedly unsexy and unnatural. Stuff that's supposed to be soft and jiggly is practically rigid, and on top of their heads being turned to the side awkwardly half the time, their faces are so flat and dead most of the time that nobody even looks like they're enjoying it. Which is weird, because when you look at just the dialogue, these are some of the most openly DTF girls in harem anime. I've said this many times, but I can forgive or at least forget a lot of nonsense in harem and ecchi comedies, even the really creepy bullshit, as long as it's clear that the creators actually care about what they're making and are having fun making it. It sucks when these shows get overly prudish or take themselves too seriously, but it equally sucks when the people making them have clearly just given up. Like, I couldn't really find a place to organically insert it into the main body of this rant, but even the sound design in this show is laughably lazy. In one scene in episode 2, the music needs to swell dramatically, but the song they're using is just a flat instrumental track, so whoever was mixing the sound just raised the volume of the track. It's such a half-assed solution that I'm kind of
getting
impressed
emotional.
with it.
Louder. A competent director and passionate studio could have turned this light novel's mediocre and questionable premise into a dumb, fun, sleazy romp, like How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, or at least something passively mindless, like In Another World with My Smartphone. The bars for both the harem and isekai genres are distressingly low, yet Morbo manages to fall well short of both of them. While I've seen worse harem anime, you'll have your day, Maburaho, I honestly can't think of a single isekai show that I have enjoyed less than this one. And I guess, really hard
in
to
a
watch.
sense, that's kind of
Really
an impressive achievement. I really don't know what else to say. After last week's pick-me-up video, I sure chose a hell of a show to bring me right back down. I'm just gonna go stare at a wall and think for a bit, but while I'm
Probably
over there,
best.
you guys should feel free to tell me what other anime you think represent the absolute worst of their respective genres.
Wow.
Or the best. When I can feel positive emotions again,
Yeah.
I might enjoy those. I'd tell you to hit like and subscribe while you're down there, but life's meaningless, so whatever. I'm Jeff Thu, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.
That's amazing. That was funny. It's hard to watch. It's really difficult. And like he said, like I get really awkward when it does all that kind of etchy stuff with characters that are drawn like 8-year-olds. It's like, ugh, gross. And then he's describing that thing. I was just like, what? So yeah, don't watch Master of Ragnarok. It's bad. Thank you guys very much for watching. What did you guys think of that? What did you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys. It's all you guys next time.